Hey guys, welcome to our third video of our Lockdown Loneliness series. In the last video we spoke about the 7 steps you can take to overcome loneliness. So if you missed that one, you should definitely check it out. I will put a link for that in the description below. In this video, however, we will speak about the 5 traps of loneliness you should try to avoid. So let's dive right into it. First of all, loneliness can be a very subjective and individual feeling. The way I experience loneliness may be totally different from you. And sometimes it is hard for us to understand why somebody should feel lonely. Because, for instance, we see someone being surrounded by others, and for us it doesn't make sense to feel lonely that way. But for them it can be a totally different experience, and maybe they have some kind of connection that hasn't been met. So just be aware that your feeling of loneliness can be totally different from your mother's or from your friends. And I can't say this often enough, but loneliness is nothing else but a biochemical signal from your brain to pay attention to your social needs. And being social is part of our genetics. I have recently watched a great documentary about our close relatives, the chimpanzees, and they are very similar to us. They also spend a lot of time in groups and with a lot of social interactions like playing, grooming, and even fighting. And they can feel lonely too. And guess what? Our bodies might be highly developed, but our brains are still basically the same they were 200,000 years ago. The second trap is that individuality can separate us from others. You might have noticed when you were a teenager that you tried different things or were drawn to specific social groups. For many of us, that was related to music. And I, for example, always enjoyed the company of my metal brothers and sisters, and referring to them as siblings, you can tell how strong the bonding was. But while spending time in your social group and acting or dressing in a certain way to feel more connected to them, you may discourage people from other groups just because the two don't get along. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend time with like-minded people or dress like them. In fact, I encourage you to do that. But you shouldn't let it define you in a way that repels others. Just be aware of it and keep an open mind for others as well. The third trap is that loneliness can make you distancing from others. You may have been in a situation where you were invited to a party or hanging out with friends and you were really looking forward to it, but on the day you ended up not going and you were just staying at home and watching TV. Well, I have bad news for you. While it's more comfortable staying at home, in the long term it doesn't do you any good, especially when it comes to meeting your social needs. In addition to that, if you do that too often, your friends might stop asking you altogether, because they feel like you say yes at first, but then won't come. Same goes for phone calls. Be honest, have you been sitting on the couch all evening, typing on your phone, but you didn't answer any calls? If somebody calls you, answer the phone and talk to them. I know you don't always feel like it, but it will help you to overcome loneliness and to prevent from falling into depression. Another trap and very important part is to watch your self-talk and the stories you tell yourself. Because your subconscious mind is always listening, and if you tell a story over and over again, you might start believing it. And while you can use that to your advantage, most of the time it does not end well. Do you remember a time in school where you did something or something happened to you and everybody was laughing and you felt so embarrassed that you stopped talking to your classmates because you thought they don't like you or they think you're stupid? Well, chances are that this is not true. And you just kept telling yourself a story over and over again until it became your reality. Maybe it's time to let go of the story, because in reality your classmates only laughed for a few seconds or maybe minutes, but you certainly don't have to beat yourself up over months. And chances are that nobody remembers anyway, so why should you keep reminding yourself? Discouraging and negative thinking is something you must overcome if you don't want to end up lonely. Because yes, you might be rejected, but don't make things worse in your head than they really are. Maybe you asked the person to hang out with you and they said no, but there could literally be 1,000 reasons for that. And more often or not, it's not the reason you think it is. Don't make assumptions that you cannot verify, because they will only make things worse. See, the meaning you give to things determines the way you feel. If we take our earlier example, maybe if you would have laughed with your classmates and felt a little bit embarrassed, but then let go after class, things would have turned out completely differently. And the fifth trap, and the one I see so often, is to blame others for the way you feel. The blame game doesn't get you anywhere, and it's oftentimes just a lousy excuse to avoid uncomfortable situations. Are you, for example, frustrated that your kid hasn't called you in a long time, and now you start telling yourself that they probably don't like you anymore, and you start blaming them every day for not reaching out to you? Well, you damn well know that this is not true, and rather than being stubborn and waiting for the call, why don't you take the initiative and make the call yourself? Oftentimes, we stand in our own way and we just make things way worse and way more difficult than they have to be. And these are the 5 traps you should be aware of. The next 2 videos are going to be mindfulness exercises that you can do whenever you want. They only take a couple of minutes and they will help you to reconnect to yourself and to others. So if you don't want to miss out on them, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we upload them. But that's it for this video. I hope you liked it and I see you in the next one.